Hi everyone, so this is Roland from IoTeX. Today I'm ready to share with you about decentralized physical infra networks and bridging the real world into Web3 through a modular infra and tools we're building in the past 6 years. So this is an emerging sector known as DePIN, right? So decentralized physical infra networks. So this will be the key to unlock the new wave of mainstream adoption in the blockchain industry. So let's start it by looking at the massive adoption opportunity here. As you can see on these slides, so blockchain networks and decentralized apps have exploded over the past few years. So total value locked in DeFi now sits around 50 billion. However, these networks remain largely disconnected from the real world economy. So in comparison, the global economy is over 400 trillion in size. Major industry like energy, transportation, real estate, healthcare, and supply chain represents tens of trillions each. So there is a huge potential to bridge the gap between the Web3 and the real world. So this is just to remember how big the real world economy is versus the current DeFi and the cryptocurrency or even Web3 economy, and the fact that we should really find ways to connect both. So just being able to dive into Web3, a small part of its real world economy would unlock $1 trillion market for the Web3. So DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infra Networks, is a new way to build and maintain the real world infrastructure. So DePIN can power any from wireless hotspots to home energy batteries. So they are built in a decentralized fashion by contributors all over the world. So who earns ownership and incentives via crypto tokens. And DePIN also unlocks innovations beyond centralized networks through the 4 key components. First, the free physical infra in the real world like devices, hardware, and sensors. Second, off-chain compute middleware is to ingest the real-world data, analyze, compute, and calculate for some certain results. And third is the blockchain architecture and the tamper-proof ledger tracking devices, contributions, incentives, and demand. And fourth, crypto token incentives to motivate contribute worldwide to build out supply side for the network. So for example, DePIN could reward users for setting up wireless hotspots with tokens. Other users pay tokens to access the decentralized wireless network like you're using your phone, right? Or 5G or 4G. So the key benefits are the DePIN can be built by anyone owned by the community, offer permissionless innovation, and the possibilities are actually endless. So talking about the flywheel. So imagine in the slide demonstrating an example how this flywheel works for DePIN today. So due to their use of tokens, so DePIN projects can benefit from a positive flywheel effect where increased usage or demand increase the token price through burn or buybacks, which then provides extra incentives for contributors to continue building out the network as the dollar value of the tokens they are paid to increase. As the network grows, investors become more and more interested and begin to support the project with funding. If a project is open source or makes contributors or user data available to the public, developer can build the apps on top of the data or the utilities the network provides, creating like additional value within the ecosystem, which attracts even more users and developers to come here to contribute. So that's kind of a kickoff the flywheel. So how's the DePIN right now, on the market? So here is a sector map that includes most of the DePIN projects on the market. So we've categorized them into 4, groups. One is server projects on the leftmost of this diagram. One is infra, one is sensor project, and one is wireless projects. So IoTeX, IoTeX layer 1 and IoTeX Webstream are actually a core part of the infra powering these DePIN projects, as we help connecting smart devices and their data to smart contracts on the blockchain. So Webstream specifically is a middleware. It's a general purpose off-chain compute environment that's focused on reducing the go-to-market time for DePIN builders or projects and acting as an oracle for the real world. Yeah, so you may wonder how can start or how should those DePIN projects get built? As of today, so most of the DePIN projects actually rely on a centralized infra to manage the real-world data coming from the devices, gets it computed and tells the DApps results. So typically, there is a central server that collecting data from devices, run some compute logics to process it, and decides if and how much tokens to distribute it to the contributors. So this centralized infra have, of course, several drawbacks, right? So first, lack of trust. The centralized party, could tweak the business logic to benefit themselves. So there's no accountability, basically. So second is no transparency. So like I said, if someone in the middle actually hack the server or just plug in some backdoors to this computational oracle centralized one in the middle, and no one knows. And third, like the data silos basically are creating like the composability silos for the developers. Like one project basically owns the whole stack, while no other kind of other project or builders can actually kick in to contribute by leveraging like a utility which has already been provided by this DePIN network. And of course, forces privacy concerns. Those data are actually coming from user devices, right? Your car, your ring, your phone, or some router in your home. So privacy is definitely like a big concern here. Yeah, so then this brings us to the question, right? So how can we, kind of address this centralized middle oracle problem? That's why like, we together with like a A16Z, so we kind of coined the term decentralized verification problem for DePIN, right? So basically we're looking for a computational paradigm that can actually fix or like verify the devices, like how they are work, what work they have done in a decentralized fashion. So this is non-trivial. So yeah, let me get into the details here. So the most obvious or like a straightforward way is like a trusted hardware-based approach. So basically, you push all the computation in the middle to the device, right? But like you have some sort of like a trusted execution environment or secure chips that has been like installed in the device. So IoTeX, from the year 2018 to 2020, so we have been like working on such two devices, which come with trusted hardware, which can do those edge compute and tells the blockchain the result, right? For example, the camera can see, oh, I have seen a dog, I have seen someone kind of get into your door, and so this become like a proof and sending back to the blockchain smart contract for something. PayPal is another device. It's like a GPS tracker plus other 16 sensors. Basically, they can tell the blockchain where you are, or like where your dog is, right? And like the temperature around the acceleration of the like a moving object, so on and so forth, by having all those data wrapped into just one data object, which is produced by this trusted hardware. So it's trustworthy, then sending it back to the blockchain. So this is the hardware-based approach. Of course, this approach has a lot of limitation. That means you have to make sure like the hardware is special purpose, like manufactured, right? So you can kind of plant those secure chips in the hardware. So it's a very slow process to design, manufacture, and also distribute those devices. The second way, I think a lot of like a DePIN project, like a Filecoin, so they're using is called a sample-based approach. So the sample-based approach is like a really simple, like on the intuition level. So basically, they have different roles in the network, right? Some are like a worker nodes who are actually storing the files, who are storing the data, and others are more plays the role of like a placeman, right? So basically, like a kind of sampling those worker servers or nodes to see if they are really doing the work they should be doing. And all those kind of placement nodes, so they will do like a consensus to form a unified view of the network. So they know, okay, so let's say worker A node or worker node A is not doing his job, so he should be slashed, right? Or maybe a worker node B is actually doing perfectly its job, so he should be rewarded. So that's kind of like a sample-based approach. So this project works in production because like I said, Filecoin and a few other projects already employ this approach to launch their mainnet, right? This is perfectly fine, but like anything here is it doesn't fit into like a smaller size DePIN networks because it's very complicated. You have to define several roles within your network. It's fine if you're like a very big project, you have thousands of nodes, right? So you can just divide and conquer different duties to them. However, for smaller kind of projects, it's really hard, to separate another role, to play the role of placement and watch the workers. So that's kind of sample-based approach. So the third one, actually, what we are going after is called like a validity proof-based approach. So this project has several advantages. First, it has a very simple node, simple like a network architecture, means like within this like a DePIN network, right? So we only need like one role, which is the node that just computes to generate like a ZKP, zero knowledge proofs. So that makes the network design very simple. So second, so this is deterministic, right? So basically, this ZKP is a type of like computational proof that is mathematically sound, so no one can actually tamper this proof. That means if this ZKP, this proof, verifies or says or attests if this device is doing A or B or C, yes, the device is actually doing A or B or C, right? So this is very deterministic. So unlike the sample-based approach, it really depends on like when and how you sample the working nodes. So you see like they are working or not properly. And third one is scalable. So like automatically, so this one comes with the sharding. Each of like the ZKP generation nodes, so they can watch for a smaller group of devices nearby to actually generating proofs on behalf of them. That means this one is like naturally like can be scaled up in a sharded way. And really like the drawback for now is like this ZK proof generation is kind of slow, right? So that's why like in-house, so we are working on a very advanced technology trying to speed up like zero knowledge generation proof just using generic hardware. So this is what we are working on. Okay, so a little bit like a zoom out from the technical side. So I want to introduce IoTeX Webstream, right? So this is like one project actually under IoTeX. So this is the off-chain compute, like exactly what we were talking about, that converts the real-world data streams into verifiable smart contract-ready ZK proofs using the things I was talking about. It actually taking data from the real world, no matter it's devices or phones or machines or API, whatever, right? So then the valid data, according to the project needs to compute a proof, says, for example, if this is like a rain, then monitor your heart rate during your sleep, right? So the computational logic could be, so your sleeping score. So then this sleeping score gets sent to maybe some dApps sitting on Polygon, let's say sleep to earn, then you can earn some token if you sleep well, or vice versa, right? As simple as that. So yeah, Webstream has like several features, like at a very high level, it's developer friendly. So we want to make this one like usable by a lot of DePIN developers, so they can have like a quick go to market and very low cost, to spin up a DePIN project. And trustworthy, yes. So this itself is like a decentralized network. So different like obeys this Cody's law principle, and at the same time, because it has some sort of like a virtual machines running inside. So as a DePIN builder, so you can cook up your computational logic. You can calculate like a sleeping score based on sleeping data. You can calculate like a driving safety score, right, based on like someone's driving data. And third one is composable, right? So we want to make this one composable. So DePIN project can actually work with DeFi, NFT, or game or social in a seamless way. So we want to break the silo, like each DePIN project is kind of like a one vertical from hardware, firmware, blockchain, smart contract, web apps, so on and so forth. So we want to break this silo by having the more, grow in a horizontal way. And the last one is ownership preserving, different like a we use their knowledge to make sure like the data never leaks, or like a user always in control of the data. Yeah, so like Webstream is such a such a great like a middle layer protocol. Um, of course, it naturally like compatible with the IoTeX layer one, right? But at the same time, we also have like a lot of relationships with different layer ones, layer two, like a BSC, Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, Solana, so on and so forth. So Webstream is definitely like a bring deeping into those other kind of layer ones and layer twos. So yeah, so a lot of technology, right? So here comes like what Webstream could be doing, like some some real use cases, so we can look into. For example, so Drive. So Drive is like a Web3 Uber. So with Webstreams, Drive can securely stream location data from the Drive app. So Webstream applets generates a zero knowledge proof of servicing like underserved routes. So these geo-proofs trigger token rewards to the driver, incentive like a broader coverage. While preserving privacy, this allows decentralized ride-hailing with crypto incentives aligned with real-world activity, enabled by what we're building as an underlying infra. So yeah, so this one is actually doing well on the market. And another one, so this is very popular in US, in North America, right? So it's just a smart ring. You just put it on. It has a bunch of sensors. So just like monitor your heart rate and a lot of bio metrics. So it can do some analysis behind the scene to see if your kind of emotion level, your sleeping score, so on and so forth. So basically, this Ora Smart Ring can connect to a Webstream to enable sleep to earn rewards for users. The Ora Appstream sleep biometrics data to Webstream authorized by user. So Webstream applets then analyze data and generates like a ZKP for achieving like a sleeping targets. So this proofs trigger some NFT rewards and directly to the user's crypto wallet, and this allows sleep to earn type of DApp gets built while preserving user privacy. So this is definitely like a very cool product. Yeah, so IoTeX, we founded it back in the year of 2018, right? Have been like leading this blockchain IoT sector for the past 6 years. And this sector, IoT blockchain sector, slowly evolved into something called DePIN as of now. And definitely like we are the go-to modular infra providing companies or buildings to represent physical devices and data on chain. We provide a complete package for DePIN innovation. On the hardware level, so there are like 3 things. Like I talk about, you can talk about PayPal, and there is another kind of general purpose DePIN dev kit. So we are working with a hardware vendor to be put on the market, right? So we want to minimize the DePIN builders' effort to really, poke with hardware, but have something that's ready to go. On the middle layer level, so we have Webstream, which is an out-of-box service, as a DePIN developer. So you should be like a really easy to use and making your DePIN network and go to market. And on the other level, so we have a lot of tools to help to grow. Like we have a wallet called IoPay, like 500,000 users. We have like our bridge, connecting to different layer 1, layer 2s, IoTube, and staking portal, dev portal, just a lot of them. And definitely like IoTeX layer 1 is a EVM compatible layer 1 that's super fast, runs the raw depots. At 5 seconds, has instant finality. So this chain has been like a battle tested, several years, and market already processed like a 5 million kind of transactions very securely and fastly. Yeah, and at the same time, we are working with a lot of DePIN partners in different sectors. Some of them actually in healthcare, some of them actually in the automotive industry or environment or smart home, smart buildings, even DeFi hardware, so on and so forth. So this is like a very brief introduction to what we are working on. So if you want to learn more, so definitely come to our website or Twitter, iotex.io or iotex _io. So you can find more information. And also you can scan this QR code to actually learn more. All right, thank you a lot for bear with me for this presentation. So if you're interested, definitely come to talk to us, and we are ready to work. we are really glad to work with you. We want to just make DePIN great. Have a good one. Thank you.